Hey guys, and welcome everyone to the fourth and final workshop of AO Ventures. I'm here with Lorimer, who's our Arweave and AO engineer, and today we're going to be diving into working an AO process, integrating AO processes with Arweave data, and advanced AO features for dApps. If you guys have any questions, once again, please feel free to ask them in the comments, and we'll try to answer them all once the presentation is complete. And with that being said, I'm excited to pass the mic to Lorimer so we can get started.
Awesome. Cool. Well, fourth and final one. So, yeah, let's dive straight in. So, this is AO fundamentals and building a dApp. So, yeah, the workshop so far, this is the last one. This is really where we're going to get really like gritty with AO, actually like deploy some processes, send some messages, and have some fun stuff with that. So, yeah, just a quick recap. If you remember way back, when we did the first one, Introduction to Arweave, we learned about like Arweave itself as a data layer. We learned about, like the proof of access, learned about Wildfire, gateways. Then we dived into a little bit of like wallets, SDKs to use. We built that dApp. Then in the last one, we went over like messenger units, scheduler units, compute units, like all of these different things. So now we're actually going to be able to tie all of these things together and like build an AO backend. So yeah, in this module, we're basically going to go AO fundamentals as well as a tour of most of like the functions we will be able to use in our dApp. I think all of these functions and things that I'm about to show you will be like just the core things that you'll need. Anything else is kind of going into like super advanced. But if you want to get super advanced, definitely check out the AO cookbook. I think the only things I really haven't included like threading and like spawning, which are things you don't really need to build MVPs. So without further ado, the easiest thing to do, I think, would be to show you guys like how you deploy a process straight away. This is like a really simple process where basically we're going to boot up AOS, create a process ID called like ping pong. So the idea would be we want to send a transaction to this process called ping, and then get like a message back saying pong, so like ping pong. So cool. So the first thing we want to do when coding with AO is we want to make like a really blank Git file. Without further ado, I've created like a pingpong.lua file. So these things here are like called handlers. I'll tell you a bit about them more later, but if we boot up AOS really quickly, the first thing you want to do is specify like your process name. So you just go AOS, and then in our case, we'll just go ping pong. And this will like create us our own custom process that is in our CLI. So we have like a process ID here. If we ever want to interact with the process we're about to make, we basically send all of the messages either from the client or other processes to this ID here. So now we're kind of like in AOS. There's lots of different things we can do. One of the things we can do is like send messages straight out of this CLI here, straight to the process. So quite a cool thing you can do is like if you forget the process ID, there's like environment variables. So like if you can go like AO.id, you basically get the ID back of the process that you're currently in. If you wanted to make like another process, you wouldn't interact with the ping pong one obviously. You'd basically close down this terminal, open a new one with a fresh process ID. So really quickly before we go into like handlers and building it, I wanted to talk about this like VS Code extension that Martin from Community Labs basically made that has lots of different typings of being able to interact with AO, but within VS Code. So the kind of thought process from the development experience of this is that you want to do everything like from VS Code. You want to be able to like deploy processes from VS Code. You want to be able to interact with them, check their status of like how the process is doing, have environment variables of like the process ID, like be able to look at the data output, be able to receive messages in the terminal, as well as like when you're coding, you want to do everything actually in it. So like this thing, when you type in like handlers and go dot, you basically get all of like the functions that you would do within like the AO environment, but within your VS Code. It makes it just like super easier to code. So what you want to do basically to have this extension enabled in your VS Code. So yeah, download this extension here called some Neko. I don't know how you pronounce it. But yeah, I've got it basically here. So you'd go to like the extensions bit of VS Code, type in that, and it's usually the top one. You'll be able to tell because it says like the name here. Plus, there's like loads of downloads. This is basically like have you ever if you're coming from like React or like even like Python, you would basically do the exact same thing here. So this is just like the Lua type version to basically get all of the add-ons. So once you've got that installed, basically what you want to do is do on Mac Command Shift P. If you're on Windows, I think it's Control Shift P. So what we in? Command Shift P, Command Shift P. This basically opens up like the VS Code like command palette. So like you can access all of your other extensions in here, but usually the top one you basically just do open add-on manager, and then you have access to lots and lots of different libraries to do with Lua. Quite a cool thing that I think it was actually an accident that when they named AO, it basically comes up at the top of most search results, which is super cool. So like, the AO1 is directly at the top. So yeah, basically you go through that process, and then here there'll be a button called like enable. Just enable it. You may need to like restart your VS Code for the changes to be applied. But yeah, once you've got that in, that will create like a little .vs code like file here. Then you get like a settings.json, and then it will create a workspace for you. So here on my laptop has my path to the add-on. So yeah, make sure you put that in a git ignore file. It's like really annoying if you start pushing that up, and then you basically got all of your team members with your path and not theirs. So yeah, make sure you put that in the git ignore. So back to handlers. I may have mentioned handlers in like one of the previous modules that we've done, but basically the easiest way to think about a handler is like how you access incoming messages, also outgoing messages. It has like utility functions like you can access within AO. You can basically add like a function you want to interact with in your AO process with a handler. Like it's just lots and lots of different functions that basically enable you to like create a process itself. So handlers are super cool. I'd basically like, if I was you, just like familiarize yourself with most of them. You've got like add and things, like list, remove. You can remove handlers as well as like utility functions. You go in. So yeah, super simple. Basically, how you add like a function into your Lua process is you do like handler.add. So this is basically, when we want to interact with a process, if you kind of imagine like you have a normal script, and just forget about everything crypto right now, but you have a normal script that did a certain thing. So like an easy example would be, imagine you had a script that was like, I blank mind. It's like a DEX. So you had a DEX, and you had all of the different logic for like the liquidity pools. You had all of the different logic for like the swapping. So you could code that in Lua really easily, right? Be super simple if you just forget about the whole of the AO like ecosystem and stuff like that. So like when I'm coding, I kind of want to think like that. I just want to think of like coding in Lua, not even worrying about like AO stuff. But when I'm ready to do that, this is basically where the handler like comes in really nicely. So I basically would do at the bottom of my script, imagine if I had like a load of logic at the top here, and I'll show you later with like a real process. You'd basically just go handlers.add and then a function name. So in our case, we're making like that ping pong server. So we want to send a message to the process and receive back, a message. So what we would do is basically add the function here that will allow us to do that. So in our DEX scenario, it could be something like, instead of ping pong, it could be called something like swap, right? Super simple. It could be something like add liquidity, or whatever. So yeah, super nice feature. So once you have that, what you want to do is basically add another handler that will look for like an incoming transaction, like sort of like tag. So you basically, if you come from like Next.js or something, you kind of want to route your message like correctly, so it goes to the correct handler. So when you send a message, you basically specify like the action or like the actual function you want to interact with. So yeah, you basically just do here in our case, we're sending um, like a data tag called ping. So basically, all of the messages we send with a data tag of ping will basically end up in our ping pong handler, right? Um, so yeah, we're basically then gonna use another handler to basically reply to that message. So here you've got like the incoming, you've caught the message, right? Then we want to send a message basically back to the message that's incoming, and we want to say pong. So yeah, you can basically take like data and send it back. So in our case, we're going to send back, we're going to do handlers.utilities.reply pong. So if we're going back to our decks, it could be something like swap successful with the reply message. So that kind of all makes sense, right? What we want to do now is basically add this onto our process down here that we've just made. So in order to do that, we basically need to dot load it. So super simply, the CLI has access to like your file system. So you don't have to like specify like the path, as long as you open it up in the VS Code like individual window where you're interacting with the process. You can literally just go load ping pong lua, right? So our file title here, we just do load, and that basically will load it up to the process. It's quite nice. They've put like colorings, and I haven't seen that before. So yeah, the following files will be deployed, finds, has access to our local file system, and basically has deployed this script that we've got. Cool. So, we've got this script with like handlers. Here's a handler to basically catch all of the incoming data called ping, and then we want to reply pong. So how do we actually interact with this function we have here? What we want to do is basically send a transaction. I learned to code in Arweave using something called Warp, and let me tell you, being in order to test like a contract, it was like really hard. You had to have another package, and usually I would end up creating another like React website that's all its purpose would be is to basically check the status of a contract and like debug out of, and like have have like transaction like outputs and things like that. Like, it was super hard. I even went at one point creating like a Telegram bot and having it in the Warp environment with an open API key, just so I could easily like console.log and then have all of like the all of the data ping me back on Telegram. So I'd have like imagine like a Telegram window open here, then, and it was super complicated. But with AO, you can literally just do this. You just send the transaction straight out the CLI, and we basically get a message here called message added to outbox, and then look, here's our pong. So if you like look into this actual like message I'm trying to send out of my CLI to the process I just deployed, the data here called ping, it's caught it here, the ping, the matching data tag here, ping, and it's replied down here with pong. So I can't tell you how helpful that is. Like, if you're creating a contract, you've got a super big contract, and you just need to check one function, like just being able to do that, super easy. So yeah, like we've got here, basically interact with the process, like send the message. The target, we basically specify our process ID. So if remember, I was going back to what I was saying, like you can like get environment variables out of your process. You just got ao.id, returns like the actual process ID of the current process we're in on AOS. So yeah, you can just do ao.id, send it to the current process you're in, and then the data ping, and then we get back a data of pong. And yeah, it's quite nice that you get like a new message from then our process ID. If you have a look down here, it's beginning letters of our process ID, super simple, and you can have a little look at the data. So yeah, super cool there. So what we want to kind of do now is have a look at some of like the actual data that has been sent back to us. So what we have in basically AOS is something called like an inbox. So the inbox is like like when you log into like Gmail and you've got like an inbox of emails. imagine if you logged into like the AOS process and you had an inbox of messages that had been sent to your like CLI, right? The actual AOS terminal you're trying to interact with. So it's exactly that. You just go like inbox, go into the current inbox of the process. And you just go data with the response message of what being sent, and basically we can see Pong. That is the message that has just been sent here, right? So if you want to have another play about, I've gone into .data, but you can actually go into the whole inbox and have a look at the whole of the message that has been sent back to your AOS. I'd call it like session, your AOS CLI, what you've got right now. So yeah, you've got lots of different information, and you guys have been asking about like what does a message actually look like, and how can you like, one person was like, how can I token gate messages? So either like my AOS process only like is able to interact with certain wallets that are trying to send messages to it. You can just do a simple if block. Like here, you could do something like if message.from is whatever this ID is, allow them to do that. Otherwise, don't. Like this message object is super nice. Lots of different information like timestamp. We know whether it's a cron or not. We know the owner. I'm pretty sure this is the wallet address currently associated to my AOS session. Whenever you boot up AOS, like for the first time, it basically adds like a like custom private key into the actual CLI. Then we've got like all of the little tags that Forward Research has put on to the message. We've got like a forwarded by tag. You've got like the block height, which is basically just the current block number, and the target where it was sending to. So yeah, lots of different information, signature, and of course our data and the ID. Probably one of the most important things is the ID. So yeah, super cool. Hello AO Ventures. That is, someone is very clever and has sent a message to my Prestus ID. I like that. That whoever did that, that's super clever. That's quite cool. Yeah. So you can send messages to actually other AOS terminals, right? So I could send a message to like if this person's obviously seen my AOS ID from me going AO.ID here and sent like a message to this process, and we'll be able to see it here. Yeah, that's not super impressed by that. So cool. Right, we basically have we've deployed a process. We've been able to send a transaction to it, and here we've gone over like the inbox of our AOS and like getting back the Pong. So we've basically got a successful process right now that you can go like ping and Pong back. So that, to be honest, is like as simple as you can get. What you want to do now is like add functions onto this. Here, if we had like a handler here called do something, could just be swap. It would basically look for a data, a message with a data tag called do. Then it would run something. So this function that we declare up here, run something, and then it will reply done once it's done. So it's like do something, do this. I've done it now. So yeah, to be honest, that is as simple as it gets. Like you now have the ability to boot up like an AOS session in your terminal, deploy a process like a Lua script from it, send a transaction to it, have a little look at like the data coming back from it. You can use the handlers to basically add like functions that you can interact with. You can add functions within the process that actually have the logic. So going back to our DEX example, we'd have a handler called like swap, and then like the function that would be called could be like swap token. Instead of just sending like data in the transaction from AOS, we could send like the what do you call it, like the ticker of the token we want to swap, and we can basically access that ticker by the message dot ticker property on the object. So yeah, to be honest, that's pretty much all you need to make a process. Now, I think what the best thing to do now is like have a look at a really complicated real world process. Well, maybe not complicated, but this is a token blueprint. If you've been sniffing about the cookbook, you might have had seen like something called a blueprint being thrown about. These are kind of like standards in AO. So there's a token blueprint that gives us a token standard. So like how in other ecosystems you've got like an ERC20. In ERC20 is basically just a smart contract on Ethereum. So it's kind of like a blueprint. Like it's like a standard, a blueprint for a token. In AO, we have exactly the same things, but we just call them blueprints. So yeah, this is a function I've taken out of the AO blueprint that basically adds a handler called mint that allows you to mint tokens. It basically looks for a matching tag called action mint. So we've got a function, basically got a handler called mint, and then it looks for when a transaction is sent. You need to go send, then brackets. Then in an object, you do action mint, right? Super simple. Here you can basically get access to the message that's like being sent. So if we want to have a look at like the message dot from, we could get the wallet address that is actually sending the message to the process. Here down here, we've basically got like an assert that basically like double checks like the values, in the message are there. So like here we need a mint, so we might do it like we're minting a token. So of course we need the quantity. The quantity has to be bigger than 0, obviously. So yeah, that is basically these like functions they've added to basically check that the message that is being sent to the process is valid. This is like really, really, really important. Mainly just for error handling, and so you don't get users that are like super confused, like, oh, I sent this message to this process and like nothing happened. There was just an error and nothing makes sense. Like being able to assert that like a certain property is there within a message, super, super simple. Then yeah, like here you can add, other functions like if not balances ao.id, then balance.id equals 0. Like you could, this is basically for like a token checking, like it's got like a balance. Then like if message dot from equals aid, then basically yeah, just basically checking that like everything's cool within the message that's being sent. Like it's for the mint function, you kind of only want this process to be able to mint. So yeah, we can basically add all of these different checkers. So now you're kind of thinking like, what's this little thing down here, ao.send? What is that? So this is basically a way in the process that a process can send a a message to another process. So I've used the example of like an autonomous AI agent a lot in this workshop so far. So like you would need like even for like a trading bot, you would need the ability for like the actual like trading bot process to be able to make a like transaction, like a swap on like another like project's process, right? Or even really simply, once you send like a message to one process, like a really nice UX thing, it may be just that in the client, you don't have to send multiple transactions and sign multiple things. You can just send one message to the process, and that process can then message other processes and do those things for you. So like from a user experience point of view, it could just be really nice instead of having for the user to sign 4 items and like wait for things. Like just take that signature that's already been verified and then make another transaction from that process to another process. So yeah, this is like a really, 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 really cool feature. And yeah, you basically get access to like the AO object to. So like you have like access to your ao.send, etc. I wonder, and I'm going to make sure no one else is messaging anything weird in the CLI. If Martin's add-on, yeah, so Martin's add-on, basically you can see directly from the Lua file, the AO object within the AO, what it's going to see. So like it did send, right? ao.send, then you get access to like the message. Then you can like basically, yeah, put the message in. So you can, you do something like that. And yeah, you can send much like you would out of the AOS CLI, you can send a message from that process to another one. So yeah, super, super, super cool. Cool. So moving on, we now are in the like ability of crons. So we've kind of learned how to like, deploy a process. So we'd write a script in our VS Code. We'd have access to like the module. We could, deploy it out of the terminal. We'd be able to send messages out of the terminal. We'll be able to have a look at the responses of messages in the terminal. How do we actually run crons, right? So like a quick refresh on crons, remember it's like the ability to do like things, like a for loop. So you could have a cron basically set up to trigger like a function again and again and again over like a certain time period. So this would just be a very, very simple way to set up a cron for 5 minutes. So remember, we'd go something like AOS ping pong, my process ID here, and then we just set like a variable here called cron and then 5 minutes. So yeah, in order for that to work, you basically need to add a handler called crontick. So this is basically like the handler that would take instructions of how you want like your cron to function. So if I wanted a cron that basically just checked for like trades, I would just add this cron tick here and then a function here to basically do something like, make a request to an oracle to have a look at the price data from like an exchange. So yeah, super, super simple. And yeah, you don't have to do 5 minutes. You can do pretty much, whatever time you want. So yeah, funnily enough, I had a team today who didn't know about AO Connect. So I would try and, sorry if it sounds like you already know what AO Connect is, but just going over this. So you've basically got AOS, which is meant for developers. It's just meant for people like actually like coding and deploying processes and sending messages and things like that out of the CLI. Do not basically have like a server, like a CLI server that does all of your apps logic. Like honestly, it would be so complicated and hard to do. Basically, AO Connect is like a TypeScript library to interact with processes in AO from the client out of like a front end, out of like TypeScript and JavaScript. And AOS is like a CLI to basically deploy processes, message them as a developer, look at the responses of them, have access to like being able to deploy them, etc. So yeah, AO Connect. What you want to do is if you had a DApp, you basically just do like npm i at permaweb / AO Connect. So yeah, this would give you access to like a lot of different things like assign, dry run, monitor, connect, spawn, message, results, and result. And yeah, it's ESM, so you can do it in like you can import like functions, and then you've got CommonJS where you can like declare them as variables. But yeah, who uses CommonJS anymore? It would be weird to do that, but you can. So yeah, AO Connect. Let's dive straight in. So much like when we're working with Arweave.js, what we want to do is initialize all of the functions in the front end to basically interact with AO a certain way. So what we can do here is basically specify what gateways we want to access. I'm pretty sure there is a default variable, much like when we did import Arweave from Arweave and then Arweave.init with the braces and then the object, and we could specify this custom gateway if we wanted to, or we could not. It would be exactly the same with this. So what we do is we basically get all of the functions we want to access. So like we'll go over these in a minute, don't worry. So like the results function, message function, spawn, monitor, unmonitor, dry run, and yeah, specify like the messenger unit URL, the compute unit URL, and the gateway we want to interact with Arweave with. So like I usually just use Arweave.net, and then these are like the main gateways that AO uses. So like they kind of look a little bit weird. But if you like forget about like the mu bit and just go AO testnet.xyz, super, super, super simple, and then mu. So yeah, these are basically the recommended like nodes you should interact with. These are the recommended units to interact with. So yeah, let's go straight into this. How you would send a message from the client, much like how we did with the like send the brackets function out of AOS. You basically just call the message function out of AO Connect. So yeah, here we basically specify like our process ID of the ping pong process that we had in the CLI. We put that here. We can add like tags to the transaction, to the message. So we could specify like our app name, put our app name in there, specify like any data that we basically want to associate, any like tag data we want to associate with our message. So later on, we can use that nice GraphQL stuff that we've been talking about in the other modules and basically retrieve all of those transactions. Like I was making a front end yesterday, and I needed to basically have it so that you could look at all of the users like transactions from a certain action and then like all of the user's transactions from like a certain like deposit. So basically, all I did was add like a tag to the message, and then just use that little like GraphQL function from the AOV workshop GitHub. And yeah, just was able to retrieve them all, and then on the front end, basically just filtered them out. So yeah, for analytics as well, like super simple analytics. So yeah, and then down here you basically put like signer in. Like in this case, we're using like the Arweave wallet. You could use like RConnect for this. You could use like Ethen. You could use Arweave.app. So this basically is the signer to sign the messages, right? And this like little thing here is called create data item signer. Don't be intimidated by that. Basically, that is like a function that basically takes all of like the connections. And if you guys have ever like integrated some of the RConnect, you basically get it in the window. So you get like window.connect, window.sign, window.encrypt. Like that basically takes how those functions are set up in the create data item signer function and converts it to be able to sign like a data item instead of trying to like call connect when you're trying to call sign. So yeah, it's like super simple. And then yeah, of course, the data property down here. What data do we want to send to the process out of the client? So this is basically just going to return you, I'm pretty sure, just an ID. And yeah, it's like, I want to know I want to get my Pong back. I've sent a ping. I want to now get the Pong. So basically you would take that message ID and use a function called result. So yeah, you just add the message ID here, add the process ID of the process you're trying to interact with. And then on the client, you just call this little function here after you've sent the message, and you'd be able to get the Pong back. And if it was a DEX, you'd be able to get like the success message back. And yeah, so that's basically how you would interact with like a process really simply. You send a message, have a look at the result of that message. And now basically what we want to do is something called like dry run. So if we kind of separate these two things to like, message and result. So they're over there. We can have a function in our application to do all those little things. Remember I was sort of showing you, like, if we keep everything like modular in the Next.js app, we can have like a nice function that would basically do that. We could call it something like send swap, right? That would basically import the message function from the Permaweb AO Connect package, import like the result, and then we could call message and then do an async await for the result. So yeah, super nice. So moving on, we've got this function called dry run. Dry run sounds like a little bit sounds weird, like it's dry and you're running. Like the last thing anyone wants to do is like, oh, I don't know, like dry run. It sounds super strange. So what you want to do with this dry run function, basically it's a way to not have to trigger a function in your process in order to get like data about the process. So if you're making a DEX, you could use a dry run like function to basically like spit out the like the current liquidity pools ratios in order to get like the price or something of a DEX process. If you were doing like an Oracle, you could dry run your Oracle process to get information about like recent messages you've like sent from the contract, and basically like get like an overview of the process without actually having to call a function in order to interact with it. So yeah, it's basically read the easiest way. So yeah, you just import the dry run function, specify process ID, the data, and then the tags as well. And then yeah, you just do like console.log result.messages, and then the most recent message, which in JavaScript starts at 0 instead of 1. So now moving on, imagine if you wanted to do that and you wanted to get the like current like what's going on in the process, like like I want to be able to basically do something on my Node.js backend that when a user sends a message to my process that's running, I want to be notified. So imagine I've got a trading bot, right? I want to be notified every time that autonomous trading bot makes a trade, because I'm tracking my portfolio and I want to know what trades the bot's making. So what you could do in like a Node.js server, you could have like a Heroku Node.js server, right? That basically imports this monitor function. So yeah, this can be used as well as in browser and Node.js. So read file sync, basically get access to the wallet. We're in Node.js. and yeah, monitor the process. So we could do something like every time a transaction is or like a message is sent to the process, the monitor function would basically pick that up, and then we could take that message that's like doing it's kind of like a WebSocket, take that and do something like notify ourselves. So it's basically like a way off chain we can like monitor what's going on in our individual process. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much all you're going to need from the AO Connect SDK. Now, something that's not known, in the ecosystem widely right now, which super new, is this SDK called AO Tokens, also actually made by Mr. Martin, the founder of Architect. So AO Tokens is basically a way to be able to really easily interact with tokens within AO. I know a lot of you guys are doing stuff with tokens, so this library will make it super easy to interact with them. So what you want to do is, instead of having to like manually type out all of the different messages of like the token process we've got like here, like mint. Oh no, that's not it. Like mint and everything like that. Martin's basically obfuscated all of that away to one SDK that you can just import. Again, like yesterday, building this UI I was doing, AO tokens came in like super handy. So like if I wanted to transfer a token, like going back to like making things really modular, I'd import the token function from AO tokens, right? Declare it, and I'd basically then be able to do something like token.transfer, and then basically take like a quantity and transfer that token to a recipient. And I don't have to specify all of the different message like process IDs and like data tags and like things like that. Like it was so easy. And you also get like access to like other really important information like associated with a token. So you get like the token's image, you get the token's like ID. In order to do that, you basically just like, if you just console log token, I think, or if you need to use something like token dot I think it's token dot like info dot id dot logo dot like all of these different properties. You can see it in the docs, but basically you can get access to like the current token like image, even if they updated it. So yeah, this was super nice. And yeah, see how this function again is like really modular. Like I could import this function into like a component and it make total sense. Instead of having to declare this token function that comes out of the AO tokens and ID and the quantity and everything like that, it's just super nice that I can just import transfer token, specify the token address that I'm trying to send, specify the recipient, and specify the quantity, how much I'm trying to send. So yeah, you can do exactly the same thing in the AO tokens for like getting balance. So yeah, I've created like a modular function here that basically is able to get the balance of a token. So it specifies like, that token, basically then would call the token.get balance and then the wallet address, convert it to like a number in JavaScript, and then you get access to the balance. Super modular and super nice. So yeah, you can use things like ViewBlock to look at all of these different messages that you're trying to send on AO and stuff. But what a really nice block explorer came out from a team called Autonomous Finance is this thing called AO.link. AO.link has saved my life so many times, and it's such a good explorer for AO. It's just made for AO. So you can see like like the type, like here it says like message. You can get like the actions. Let's have a look. What does that say? Player move, get price, and so you can see like all the different things, the IDs, who it's from, who it's to, and yeah, really nice block explorer. I'd highly recommend it. So that's basically drawing us to a close. To be honest, there's not much else to show you that now you don't know. We've got like really good understanding of how Arweave, Arweave operates like as a consensus mechanism, as a protocol. We know how permanence in Arweave works. We know how the Arweave token comes in. How like gateways work. We've got a full overview. And yeah, now we know about like AO and stuff. We know like how AO works. We know like all the different wallets you can use, different SDKs, and interacting with processes, how to deploy them and stuff. So yeah, super good position now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Feel free to reach out in the Discord with any questions you have. Already had a few calls with you guys individually on what you're building. Happy to help out more. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Handing it back to Jesse.
Amazing. Thank you, Lorimer. You really went out with a bang on your last technical workshop. It was very nice to get these sessions from you, and I hope that everybody participating got something valuable out of it. We did get a ton of questions, so I will begin reading some of those to you, Lorimer. Okay, first question. The AO process is running on which machine?
The AO process will run on the like the nodes that are currently being employed by Ford Research. So it wouldn't actually run within like the AOS terminal. They think it would run like on like those gateways that basically I specified. So like I did AO dash gateway.xyz. Basically, yeah, you would go to that that like gateway or that node to basically work out like the state of all the process. So no, you don't have to like have AOS open like what for your users process to work. You could just deploy it and then shut down that AOS terminal, and you'd still be able to interact with the process, and you don't have to like run it locally.
Which is this different from SmartWeave or Warp? Was that run locally?
Yeah, you basically, I think, no, it's kind of similar. It's just I guess like when you have like a client using like AO Connect, or you have like a terminal using like AOS, it does like compute certain things about a process, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to run just on that um like client or CLI. Like the way it's architectured is it will compute like the state of a process, like I'm pretty sure in the client or in the terminal, wherever you're doing, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily restricted to just that client. Like using like the gateways and things like that, like the actual nodes themselves. Like the nodes have logics, have all of these different like messaging units, compute units, scheduler units to like order these transactions and things like that, and actually work it out. So on your terminal or on your client, you're not trying to work out the whole state of AO. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's similar architecture, but I'm pretty sure it's just been like it like works on and improved a tiny bit from when what we're doing it.
Okay. And is there a way to check sent messages?
To like check them. Yeah, I guess you could just do something like you could go to ao.link and basically like go into you go into your process. So you just take your process ID, type it into ao.link. It would come up with a nice UI of all of your different listed um, transaction IDs associated, with that. There's probably a way to do it in AOS, or if there isn't, I'm sure one day there will be. But probably the easiest way to do it right now is to add a tag if you're trying to retrieve them, and like actually get them via GraphQL. Like that's what I'd say is the easiest and most reliable thing to do. Add a tag, GraphQL it if you're trying to do it from like a script. But if you're trying to just do it because you're curious about what's going on in the process, go to ao.link. That would be the easiest UI to interact from and do it from.
Okay. And can we make a ChatGPT API calls from a process? In general, is Orbit AO Oracle system the only way to have HTTPS requests from a process?
It's a good question. I know in Warp you could like make a fetch request. I don't think there is a similar thing in Lua to do that. So that's why you basically need something like Orbit, which is basically just an Oracle to be able to make, get and post requests, via like a handler. So I'm sure there could possibly be a way to do it because Orbit do it. So there could possibly be a way to do it. But the easiest way to make a request would just be to use something like Orbit. But I'm only aware if that's the only project that's specifically doing Oracle service for GET requests. But I know there's other Oracles they're not specializing in developer GET requests.
Okay. Is it possible to change the cron interval or remove it later after spawning the process?
I think so. You just like basically like kill your AOS terminal, and I think that would kill it. Um, yeah.
How could we make a process to swap tokens on Uniswap?
You could. How do we make a process to swap tokens on Uswap? You would need so you'd like deploy a process, right? You'd create all of your different handlers and things. You'd maybe say, let's say like an autonomous trading bot, right? So you'd add all your handlers, you'd add your cron tick handler, all of your functions like the trade logic. You deploy it and add a cron in AOS, and then I guess you could use something like Orbit to make a request to the actual like. I think you can probably do this like the actual Ethereum gateways, um, like somehow, and you'd basically need to also sign. You need to sign transactions somehow as well. So what you could do is like a request to Orbit to like sign a transaction on like a backend somewhere, maybe to like use a wallet address to sign that transaction you're trying to send to Uniswap, and then you'd have to break down a Uniswap SDK to basically figure out where that gateway for Uniswap is. There will be one, basically like an HTTP gateway, and yeah, deconstruct the transaction that SDK is sending, and then yeah, do exactly that in AO. It sounds really complicated. If you can figure out how their TypeScript packages work, not the actual like don't muck about with nodes, like the actual TypeScript package, that it will be quite simple, and you can deconstruct it and do it within the process basically.
And is it feasible to use AO as a signaling server to enable WebRTC peer-to-peer connections?
Probably out of my comfort zone on that one. If it sounds like it's just like if you can do like requests, I think you need like you need some way of like hold on a minute.
Maybe that question's better for the Discord.
Yeah, I come back to you on Discord, but to be honest, anything is possible. Like as I say that like properly, like yeah, anything is possible. This looks possible. But yeah, I have not much experience with a web RTC server, but looking at diagrams, this does just look like the sending and receiving of data. So in theory, I think you could. It's like if like a WebRT server is what I think it is, just like sending and receiving data from like a server to clients and things. Um, you could pass about data to different processes, and then like like a web browser would, or like a server to basically bounce across requests of all these different data servers. You could do the exact same thing in like AO, but you just instead of using servers and like traditional AWS servers, you could use like processes if that's what you mean. I'm pretty sure it is, but yeah, I think you could. But yeah, if as long as I've got that analogy correct, you could.
Is there a way for the app developers to sponsor users' transactions?
Yeah, there is. So you mean like the users would not having to pay for transaction fees? Right now, all of the transaction fees associated with AO like are subsidized by Forward Research. And yeah, I don't think there's any plans to get rid of that because I know that most gateways subsidize the transactions up to 100 kilobytes anyway. So if you're trying to send like a transaction um, using like a bundler, most of them subsidize it, and I'm pretty sure all of the AO Connect and AOS stuff they're using bundlers. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be subsidized for a while. But how you could do that is you'd need to use a package called R bundles um, to basically deconstruct a transaction. I actually made an SDK called subsidized JS for this, but with Arweave transactions, not AO transactions. So if you ping me, I can send you that link. Um, but yeah, basically, yeah, you can, but you'd need to deconstruct the transaction, use R bundles to basically create a bundle of the transaction you're trying to send on chain, then use like a node wallet, which is like your wallet that you're trying to pay from to basically sign those transactions and send them. You'd most likely need like a backend to do that. Um, but yeah, you can totally do that. I don't think it's been done with specifically AO tokens before, but with Arweave transfers, it's totally doable.
And is there VS Code node project with all the AO Connect samples we can download?
Yeah, you just go to the cookbook. AO. I'm going to put it in the chat. AO underscore cookbook. I think it's .org.dev. Let's have a. I'll type it in. This is like okay. It's not AO underscore cookbook. Let me type it in. This is like this has everything in it, like everything and more than we've covered. Has yeah, you get access to like all of the AO Connect function. Oh, I've just asked the question. You get access to through everything through that. Just go to cookbook_AO. You get access to all of the AO Connect functions. How to deploy a process, how to send a transaction. It's like the central hub of like the AO ecosystem as a developer.
Okay. And where might I find this AO token SDK?
Just go to AO tokens. I don't think Martin's made a docs for it. We just type in AO tokens, AO dash tokens on npm. He's added a README, and you can get all of the information from there.
Okay. And where can we read code from AO apps? Last question, by the way.
Okay, awesome. That's a good question. I actually don't even know if that's been done yet. That's one thing I was actually searching for, and I came up with like a really quick solution that was basically just to pull the data from the process ID and like do it manually and have a look at from a code that way. I actually don't think this has been done yet. Um, but yeah, again, I can, if you ping me in the Discord, I can definitely try and ping. Yeah, actually, if you go into the AO Discord, they will 100% know. But as of my knowledge, I actually don't think there is a way to do that in like a nice UI. You'd have to do it manually through like GraphQL and retrieve it through the process ID. That would be a bloody good project. Just saying.
Okay. Great. I think that's everything. We can wrap up now. Again, thank you, Lorimer, for all the technical workshops. It's been a great resource for everybody in the program. Um, and also, everybody, we're going to be doing keynote number 3 on Thursday with a longtime dev and builder in the Arweave ecosystem, Martin Lederer. So he helped build a lot of what is now the Arweave wallet, Arconnect, and he's now building across multiple different projects in the ecosystem. So make sure to register for that event. Go ask questions. That one's actually going to be an hour earlier than our usual time at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I think 8:30 p.m. Central European Time, but check for yourself. Um, and anyways, thank you guys. Looking forward to seeing what you build, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. And thank you again, Lorimer.